A big reversal. President Biden will now let Ukraine use long-range missiles supplied by the U.S. to hit inside Russia. Until now, the president had resisted this position, concerned it could escalate Russia's war in Ukraine into something even larger. Kelly O'Donnell is traveling with the president in Brazil. And Kelly, this move, coming as President Biden only has a couple months left in office, seems meant to send a message.
Exactly right, Hallie. Good evening. This is a notable shift in policy. Two U.S. officials tell NBC News the Biden administration is giving Ukraine the green light to use American-made long-range weapons for limited strikes inside Russia. Until now, President Biden had restricted the use of American-made weapons to the Ukrainian battlefield to prevent a wider war. But the president is also alarmed by North Korea sending thousands of its own soldiers to help Russia. And given the sensitivity of this change and military operations, the White House and the Pentagon are not commenting publicly on this. Hallie?
And Kelly, this is almost certain to come up where you are in South America as the president heads to the last international summit of his presidency.
That is right, but President Biden became the first sitting president today to tour the Amazon rainforest here in Brazil. So making a little history before he joins the other leaders of the G20 summit, where they will be focused on the stability of relations with allies and the U.S., including support for Ukraine. That, of course, before President-elect Trump returns to office.
So that one was NBC. This one is BBC. Last time I checked, BBC is kind of takes place in Europe or something like that. I think this is a Europe newscast station. So that's essentially, I didn't want to check Fox because I already know Fox is going to be like, this is a terrible idea. They're trying to start World War III type stuff. So we wanted to see what NBC was saying. Of course, NBC kind of wording things a little differently. Let's see what people in other countries are thinking about this situation.
The US President Joe Biden has authorized Ukraine to use American long-range missiles to strike targets deep inside Russia.
Until now, Mr. Biden has been reluctant to give permission because of concerns about the conflict escalating. Our correspondent David Willis reports now from Washington.
The aftermath of the latest missile attack on Ukraine, Russia's largest in months. This, the city of Sumy, near the Russian border, after a missile hit a residential area, killing 10 people and injuring many more. As President Biden arrived in Rio for the G20 summit, reports emerged of new U.S. measures to help Ukraine defend itself. Authorization from the outgoing leader for the use of long-range, American-made guided missiles capable of striking deep into Russian territory. Potentially a significant development in the conflict, and one President Zelensky has been calling for months.
Today,
many in the media say that we have received permission to take appropriate actions. But strikes are not made with words. Such things are not announced. The missiles will speak for themselves, definitely.
President Biden's decision followed the arrival last month of around 10,000 North Korean special forces sent to help Russia reclaim territory lost to Ukraine in the Kursk region of eastern Russia. Known as ATACMS, these U.S. Army tactical missile systems have a range of almost 200 miles and are difficult to intercept because they travel at such high speeds. President Biden is keen to do all he can to help Ukraine in the little time he has left in office. He'd resisted authorizing the use of American long-range missiles up to now for fear of antagonizing Russia. But with winter approaching and Russia advancing, retaining territory taken in the east could provide Ukraine with a bargaining chip in the event of future peace talks. David Willis, BBC News, Washington.
We can go live to Ukraine now, speak to our diplomatic correspondent, Paul Adams, who joins us from Dnipro in the east of the country.
So to me, essentially, everybody is trying to get a piece together, the reasoning for Biden allowing the Ukraine to use these missiles. They said in the other video with NBC, it's supposed to be limited use. So I'm assuming they only have maybe 2 or 3 missiles. I don't know how much missiles you would need. A lot of people are saying that this is Biden's, parting gift to Trump. Here, I'm about to get close to starting this next war for you to handle. Good luck. Man, others, clearly others news stations are saying that this is Biden's assistance to Ukraine to help with, future resistance and delaying the continuation on the spread of Ukraine's territory. So that's kind of the thing that's happening right now.
Paul, how could these American missiles change the course of the war?
Well, I think we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. Will they change the course of the war? Probably not, but they are a significant new development, probably one of the most significant changes in US policy in the last year or so. Initially, we understand they are going to be used only in the Kursk region. That is the area inside Russia that Ukrainian forces have held since August. And I think it's an indication that Washington is happy to allow or to assist Ukraine to hold on to that territory, possibly ahead of peace negotiations sometime next year. What the attackers can do is that they can attack targets deep inside Russia, the kind of logistics and support facilities that the Russians need to mount an effective counteroffensive in Kursk. It will probably complicate their efforts and complicate the use of the North Korean troops too, because this is a pretty fearsome weapon capable of doing a great deal of damage. And so I think the hope is that this will make it possible for the Ukrainians to cling on there in Kursk for the time being. The Ukrainians obviously hope that they will be able to use it more widely in the future, perhaps in other parts of the eastern front line. But it's worth bearing in mind that the Ukrainians don't have a huge number of these missiles, so they're going to have to use what they have pretty carefully. And the other thing that Pentagon officials have been pointing out for weeks now is that the Russian planes that carry the bombs, the glide bombs that do so much damage to the Ukrainian front line, those aircraft are now based well outside the range of the attackers, even further inside Russia. So it's unlikely that it'll have an effect on that side of the military campaign.
Paul, it's coming up to 3 years now since the start of this conflict. For people there where you are who are living on the ground, living through this day by day, how might this change from America change their mood?
Yeah, it's almost 1,000 days. It'll be 1,000 days tomorrow since the full-scale invasion. We had a pretty grim series of reminders yesterday of what Russia is capable of, as many as 20 people killed in the course of the day. And so in one sense, the grim realities of this war are ever present. The kind of technical, theoretical possibility of a new weapon system to change the course of the war feels probably to most Ukrainians like a rather distant prospect. But certainly in Kiev, in government circles and military experts that we've spoken to, they feel that while this is unlikely to kind of somehow miraculously unlock a Ukrainian victory, it will restore some balance. It'll make life more difficult for Vladimir Putin, and it'll enable the Ukrainians to plan their efforts with a bit more confidence. So it is going to be a big morale boost. It's something that they've been wanting for a very, very long time. But I don't think anyone here is kidding themselves that somehow the war has just got a little shorter.
Okay, so that's an interesting stance. So again, this thing is kind of taken not an interesting turn of events, but I think considering that this is happening as of right now while Biden is trying to get out of office, it's causing a lot of dismay with a lot of people. It's causing a lot of fear in the sense of what's going to be happening next. Is America going to get highly involved in this new war? Now, again, this situation is just a matter of Biden allowing for Ukraine to use one of their missiles that's supposed to be long range, that's supposed to hit inside Russia. From there, it's supposed to be a defense mechanism to delay any progression from Russia. The problem that the right seems to be having is that this is going to further involve America in this war, which is what we don't want, because again, from their perspective, from the right perspective, this is somebody else's war. We shouldn't be dealing with their issues. But from the left's perspective, this is an allies war. We should be able to assist them. And war is a very tricky situation, especially when you're not the one that's involved in the forefront. Things become very tricky. This honestly reminds me a lot of this game that I used to play. It's called Mercenaries. You're essentially one of three mercenaries, and you were, I think this was with the war with North Korea, but for some odd reason, it was essentially a world war. It was North Korea, there was South Korea, there was China. I think Japan was in there, the US was in there, and I feel like some other nation was in there as well. And essentially, there were some factions. I mean, there were allies, some factions, and stuff like that. So the crazy thing that about that is you held missions, you took people out, but certain missions that you were assisting with would help out certain factions or certain allies, because you really weren't on anybody's side. You're a mercenary. You're just doing whatever job is given to you, which is an issue. So if you were, you know, like, yeah, USA, and you're on USA side and you're attacking North Korea, but then you did something to, let's say, in this case, I think if Russia was in there, then you would decrease your relationship with Russia. You try to increase your relationship with Russia by doing stuff for them, but that meant that you would decrease your relationship with South Korea, which means that you would also decrease your relationship with the USA. The problem that I'm seeing right now is that the US is starting to get into that position where they're getting involved to a point where, I mean, would you call it a World War III? I mean, I would seem like a World War III because North Korea is getting involved, and that's, I mean, I honestly didn't think was going to be happening. So for the US, and I'm thinking that Biden did this in response to North Korea. If North Korea is going to provide assistance, then the US would provide more assistance. I don't know how much more efforts the US is going to provide assistance to Ukraine. But again, the issue that a lot of the right is having is that they're providing a lot of assistance when we in America right now, Americans need assistance, but we're giving our assistance elsewhere. People may say that, you know, it's a Christian thing to do to help out other nations. Yes, but for war, the Bible doesn't talk about war like that to that extent where you're helping out other nations. So I can't really attest to that. But so again, we're trying to make sure that we're getting clear cut information in regards to all of this. So I've subscribed to ground.news. This one provides excellent information and facts about, you know, what's actually going on. And they kind of provide their distribution based off of whether the report is kind of left leaning, center, or right. Is pretty evened out here. And we can kind of see based off the reports, GB News, whether it's fixed factual or whether it's high factual and stuff, and then whether it's right leaning, left leaning, all that good jazz. So again, the right is saying that this is going to lead to World War III. The left is saying that this is going to provide the assistance from Vlad essentially being able to progress on Ukraine. So we see here Joe Biden's risk starting World War III after lifting ban on Ukraine's use of long-range missiles. On the left side, Biden authorizes Ukraine to use long-range missiles to strike deep into Russia. I mean, they're not really saying much on how this could be affecting, you know, everything. They're kind of just stating exactly what would be happening. Let's see, the Journal. Biden clears Ukraine's use of missiles as China calls for cooling. I don't know what that means. So if anything, that's exactly what's happening. The fact is, Biden has allowed for Ukraine to use these missiles. The motives that some are saying is that this is this is Biden's FU gift to Trump. Hey, I'm going to involve us in this war a little more. So good luck handling that. And this could be one of those cases where it's like this old man doesn't know what he's doing and he's just allowing people to do whatever just to, you know, keep that relationship. And now we're going to be caught up in this war if it gets worse, which can be true. And at the other side, it's the idea of both Biden is providing the assistance to these allies, Ukraine, to be able to protect themselves against further, you know, progression on the other side, on Russia. And especially now that Russia seems to be getting assistance from North Korea, which honestly This doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good at all that they're getting assistance from another enemy that we tend to stay away from. So we'll see how things go. They're saying that they're supposed to be coming up with a peace treaty next year. But why are we waiting till next year? Why can't we just get this done now? But I guess they're waiting for Trump to get into office. But I mean, with war, I don't know. You just don't know. Either way, this is what's happening in the world right now, y'all. Y'all let me know in the comments saying what y'all think. Is Biden just trying to set Trump up and with the okie doke and involving us more into this war? Or is he legit trying to provide, some assistance to Ukraine? But even then, at the same time, is this assistance going to be beneficial for Ukraine? Or is this kind of just one of those things where it's like somebody's asking for help and you're just like, oh yeah, I'll help you, no problem. After they keep asking, even though you know exactly what the repercussions could be. Y'all let me know in the comment section below. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Take it easy. Peace.